Yo, it's your boy Demxntia. Yesterday on my Instagram, I asked you guys to send in questions so I can reply to them in full length on YouTube. And I got a lot more questions than I anticipated, so we're just gonna try and get through them all. But if you're a fan, a casual listener, a fellow up and coming artist, or you're just bored and need someone to listen to in the background, then I think this will be cool. I'm sure you'll be able to find some value in this video, or if you're just bored and need something to throw on in the background, then that's cool too. Before we get into it, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and follow me at WowDemxntia so you can stay up to date on new music, plans, tours, and then you can interact with me. Let's get into it. How did you start in your music career? So I dropped out of high school around 2016. Honestly, I wish I could say I dropped out of school to be a musician. You know, that would have sounded cool, but I just didn't want to go to school. I grew up getting in a lot of trouble. I struggled listening to authority, and I just wasn't the type of kid who could really sit through school. And there was three things that I really wanted to do. One of those was flip sneakers. The second one was MMA. And then the third option, and the most affordable option, was music. So I remember borrowing $20 from my mom to get DistroKid, which is a music distributor. And then I got like a $50 snowball, some fake Apple earbuds. I got a hold of FL Studio. And then I've been working ever since. What is your ethnicity? Xin chào các bạn. Tên của mình là Demxntia. Từ Tampa, Florida. Yeah, so I'm Vietnamese. I was born in Tampa, Florida though. And I'm also a little bit of Chinese on my dad's side. A lot of people will mistake me for either Japanese or Filipino. I don't really see it, but hey. I remember posting a TikTok saying something in Vietnamese and it completely blew up. Obviously, you have a super supportive and loyal fan base in Vietnam alongside the rest of Asia. So it's really cool to be able to kind of rep the set, you feel me? Favorite tattoo. I have this Cowboy Bebop quote on my arm and it says, I don't know how well you guys can see that. I'll probably try and zoom in. But it says, whatever happens, happens. And that's a quote from Cowboy Bebop that I think about a lot before I crash out. I remember watching Cowboy Bebop when I was 16, and there was that scene where Spike was like, oh well, whatever happens, happens. And he just lit up a cigarette. And I think that scene completely changed the trajectory of my life. I was super lost, I was super depressed. And so I remember watching that scene, and then afterwards I flipped a coin and decided to leave high school. But yeah, that would probably be my favorite tattoo. Did you have any difficulty when you made your first song? I had a lot of difficulties when I made my first song, and the most difficult thing about it was the fact that it was bad. So this is something that I want any artist to understand. You're prone to making some of the worst music known to man before you make like a listenable one. I've been playing music all my life, and even my first like 10 songs was garbage. But the most important thing to keep in mind is you can't let it stop you from creating, because your first 10 songs may be trash, but that 11th one might be a banger. And that's the mindset that you need to have for anything to work. If you don't give up, you'll never fail, and it's better to fail trying than never try at all. When did you start making music, and whenever you feel inspired, do you write music or follow a plan? So I started playing music when I was like 4 or 5. I was just playing instruments, and I didn't start taking music seriously until like 2016, 2017. And whenever I feel inspired, I usually start with a hum or like a melody. And I don't know how much sense this will make, but I feel like I can almost express myself better melodically than I can with words. So it usually starts with a melody, and then I'll try to lay that out on FL Studio somehow. Very rarely do I follow a plan. And that kind of applies for a lot of things in my life. Was there always someone you were making music for, or was it just for you and your feelings? So, as a lover boy, I wrote a lot of my music for my girlfriend, even before she was my girlfriend. I've known her since I was 14 or 15. So yeah, I mean, we were on and off for a little bit before we made it official. But as of today, we've been officially together for almost 6 years. But yeah, and if it's not about her, then it's usually about me. I tend to dress up my songs in a way that's kind of romantic. And the narrative is usually about a girl, but the girl in question would be just to me. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but it makes sense to me. How did it feel having your first big song on streaming platforms? So honestly, it was pretty surreal knowing how many people connected with the song. I'm always kind of thinking about the next thing. And it's definitely a blessing and a curse, because on one hand, I'm always motivating myself to just keep going. But then in a blink of an eye, as I've gotten older, the last like 8 years felt like one. So I never really stop and think and really take my flowers and celebrate. But I think it's also worth noting that none of my songs was an instant hit. I feel like songs that I made a couple years ago are still like kind of peaking out right now. For example, my song Tonight, I released all the way back in 2018 on like a random Saturday. And it didn't do anything crazy until like a couple years later. So when you fast forward the time, it's like Yeah, it has like close to 100 million streams on Spotify, but that took some time. I'm always super grateful, and it's never something that I could really put into words how it makes me feel, because it's just crazy. I'm just a guy who sings. But if nothing else, it means the world to me. Are you a skibbity or something? Your songs are so good. Alright, bro. What keeps you motivated to make music? Plus, how did you keep up with the hustle? So initially, I was probably in my lowest state mentally and physically, and music was a way for me to hold on to as a purpose. I felt like if I could bring something new to the table and connect people via music while I'm doing it, then that would serve as my purpose for being alive. I don't believe this is true for everybody, but at least for me, I didn't feel as though my life would have been worth living had I not made an impact. There's just something about the cycle of creating a song that you really love, and you're thinking to yourself like, oh, this is the best song ever. I'll never be able to make something better than this. And then you make something better than that, that is bliss. And then of course seeing the response from people online, and then especially the response of fans in person when you do shows and whatnot, that's what keeps me going. But to be completely honest on how I kept up with the hustle, I'm from the trenches, dog. We were just broke as hell. I'm at a point in my life where I just can't stop even if I wanted to. I have a lot of people who rely on me. I've been supporting my parents financially since like 2020. And yeah, I wanted to take control of my life, and to me, the person in control has the most responsibilities. So that's a burden that I'm willing to bear. What's one thing that you struggled a lot throughout your journey? The one thing that I struggled a lot throughout my journey is kind of maintaining the balance of my work and personal life. I'm a very one thing or the other all in kind of person, if that makes sense. I'm also extremely ADHD, so balance is just out of the equation. I'll get hyperfixated on anything. So when I'm working, that's all I'll think about. No one who achieves something great does it through a balanced lifestyle. It's usually pretty crazy. And I'm not saying that's the best way to go about it, and I'm not saying that's the only way to go about it, but knowing that I had no other option but to make this music thing work for me and my loved ones, I kind of just took that sentiment and ran with it. And so I had no balance. And that was a sacrifice that I was willing to make, unfortunately. But now that I'm in a better place, in a healthier place, I try to just have like a hard cutoff time when I'm not working as efficiently. Obviously, I can just push it through and thug it out, but sometimes you don't gotta always do that. You know, hi there, what's your secret to making such amazing music? Love from Mexico. Thank you. Honestly, the secret is just repetition. It's the same cliche answer that everyone tells you that's unfortunately true, is that you just have to keep at it. And the reality of it, like I said, is your first 10 songs might not be great, but your 11th song might be better. So the sentiment that I kind of ran with for most things in my life is that it's quantity over quality, because quantity builds quality. Meaning you can't focus on quality if it's your first song. It doesn't matter if you spend 100 hours on it, it's not going to be that good. And I'm not saying to skimp out on quality, but don't let the false idea of perfection stop you from creation. Are you Vietnamese and can you speak Vietnamese? Mình nói được một chút tiếng Việt, nhưng mà mình không biết nói được nhiều. I only really speak Vietnamese to my parents and my girlfriend's parents, and sometimes you guys. And the thing that always trips me up is how I refer to myself and how I refer to other people. But aside from that, I can generally understand it, and I can kind of speak it. I would give myself like a D plus in that department. Do you feel like your evolution of your mental state has been obvious through your music? I mean, I feel like it has been, just because you'll get like Goodnight Part 2 followed by Wired followed by Psychosis. You can kind of see how I'd like derailed and just started crashing out upon no request. But with each project that I put out, it's really dope for me to be able to see the timeline and have you guys be a part of that shared experience. I'm no longer depressed. I'm no longer that angry. I'm not that bitter of a person. I'm a calm little dude, bro. I'm getting to that age. You know, I'm 24. I turned 25 soon. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I came in the game with a chip on my shoulder. I was just kind of a bad experience to be around, to be honest. I just had to chill out. So I guess to answer your question is that I only hope so. I hope you guys can see that I went from a sad boy to a D1 crash out specialist to now a mature businessman, lover boy, you feel me? Have you always used your music as an outlet for your mental health? So here's the thing that gets a little tricky for me, is that music used to be my escape, but now I need an escape from music. Because I feel like once you monetize your passion and then it becomes an obligation and a business, It's not exactly rainbows and butterflies, but I feel like music in itself, when it comes to creating and consuming, it has always been an outlet for my mental health. I'm kind of guilty of keeping things to myself and not really venting to anyone. How old are you? I am a young 24, about to turn 25. I know a lot of my Vietnamese fans like to call me Yo or but yeah, I'm still young, man. I still got some life in me. What's your favorite album and song that you've made and why? So I feel like my newest album, C'est la vie, is pretty up there for me, just because I feel like I was able to recreate R&B in a way that I really enjoy it and I feel really connected to. And my favorite song on that album is probably Say I Love You. Don't Make Me Choose is a pretty close second, but man, I was feeling really burnt out creatively. I had just moved out and gotten my car and all this. And it wasn't until I made Say I Love You that it kind of really made me fall in love with music creation again. What is your favorite part of your culture? Food, festival, celebrations? Look, bro, I'm a certified big back. I admit it. Food. It has to be food. Vietnamese food in general is number one for me. It just hits all three notes of sweet, sour, spicy, and it's always so fresh yet filling at the same time. I could really fuck up some bom thịt nướng or some phở đặc biệt or some bánh mì. Shall I even take bánh ướt? But hey, I'm cutting right now, so let me chill out. Let me not get too excited. How did you become an artist? Did you go to college or start making music from your bedroom? As many of you guys may know, I dropped out when I was 16 years old, and I very simply started by just recording myself in my bedroom over beats that I learned how to make and uploading them to SoundCloud and YouTube for free. There is honestly no better time to be an artist than now, because there's just so many resources that you can get a hold of now that even I didn't have when I first started. And especially with TikTok, it's just like a free lottery ticket to being heard. So yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about starting music, then I'm almost positive you can use whatever you're watching me on to record. How do you continue pursuing your dreams when you don't feel motivated? The answer to this question is discipline. Motivation in itself is a fleeting feeling. You can't exactly rely on motivation because although it'll help you when it's there, it's not going to do anything for you when it's not. So I feel like getting in the groove of doing difficult tasks and doing things that you don't want to successfully, and even just doing things that you hate like you love it, of staying focused and staying on task. And when you're really feeling demotivated, you kind of almost have to picture the worst happening. What happens if I spend another day on this couch? What happens if I spend another week on this couch? How much further will I be along if I get up and go do what I have to do? Whether that be your passions, whether that be the dream, whether that be the work that you have left, just remember that it'll be 5 times worse the longer you put it off. And then go get it. How are you making these relatable sad songs when you are in a happy relationship? So although I'm in a very loving and happy relationship, my mental still works in very obscure ways. I'm not exactly the most feeling-based person, so music definitely helps pry that out of me as a person, if that makes sense. And yeah, depending on how I'm feeling that day, it'll determine the genre of the song that I'm making. Are all your songs inspired by your personal experiences? Yes and no. I feel like for the most part, it is inspired by a personal experience that I went through. But other times, it's usually inspired by something that like a friend will tell me about. Or it could be inspired by like a movie or a game or a show that I saw. I try my best to find inspiration from every source that I can. Who inspired you the most to make music, and when did you figure that you had the talent for it? So I figured out that I had an ear for music when I was about 4 or 5 years old. But both of my older brothers are super talented when it comes to instruments, and I just wasn't about to be the one who gets flexed on. So, I had to pick up some piano and some guitar as well. I had to hold my own. So, I would say earlier on, they inspired me a lot. And just whatever that was on the radio at the time. I would say like Linkin Park, Jason Mraz, Green Day, 50 Cent. But I was most inspired by like the underground SoundCloud wave of like Sesh Hollow Water Boys, Sad Boys, Members Only. Once I found out that like all these guys are just doing it from their room or from their house with a bunch of friends, I kind of had this thought where it's like, yo, if they can do it, then there's no reason why I can't do it either. When did you realize that you were getting famous? I don't think I've even realized it yet. Even though I got like over 1 million monthly listeners and like 500 million streams and all these followers, in my head, I am nothing but a Florida man. I'm just a dude who yaps online and makes music. It was extremely surreal to see, but when I was on my China tour, it was absolutely surreal to see how many people recognized me and knew my songs word for word without even speaking English. The other day I got recognized at Walmart, bro. I was like, damn, you done caught me lacking. But yeah, honestly, I try my best not to think about that. I don't care about fame or vanity or anything like that. I just want to make dope songs, connect people, and take care of my people. Have you ever released any R&B style songs? What do you mean by that, brother? You trying to say I'm not R&B? Have you ever cried listening to your own songs? I did cry listening to Castle in the Sky. If you guys don't know, Castle in the Sky was written about my late friend Hakeem, who goes by the name of Chronicle. He took his own life a couple years back, but I remember him as an older brother and a mentor when it comes to music production and mixing. And honestly, I remembered us just spending a lot of time getting drunk and playing Fortnite with the boys. I remember it was me, Hakeem, Dion, and Michael just running it up. But yeah, that's a heavy one. What's your favorite instrument that you love to play? For a really long time, it was piano. Nowadays, I feel like I tend to write a little bit better on the guitar. What keeps you up at night? Probably the idea that I am not enough. Whether I'm not enough for myself, whether I'm not enough for the people around me. That topic usually takes up most of my mind. I always feel like I'm so far from who I want to be that even when I make significant progress, whether it's on my personal life or my career, and then probably Ableton users. Dream car or dream house? You know what they say. You can sleep in your car, you can't drive a house. But I don't know what my dream car is. It honestly changes pretty often. But I would definitely say my dream house is somewhere a bit more, remote, maybe a little bit more naturey, more natural, a little brown, maybe even a little bit of greens. What song would you hit the gritty the hardest in? Any song is allowed. Boa Duvet. If you could only sample one video game soundtrack for the rest of your career, which game would it be? Kingdom Hearts 2. Do you get writer's block, and if so, how often? So I used to never get writer's block, but I've also made like 600 songs. And because I write and produce everything by myself, it's very easy to start losing count of chords and patterns and progressions and melodies. So whenever I get writer's block these days, I try to collab. And if no one's available to collab, then I'll try to just work with what I know. Just basic exercises of like chord progressions and song progressions. And then another way is to just consume more media, whether it be animes or shows or movies or video games. Just anything that you can really draw inspiration from. And then if you're all out of luck, just take a break. I'm the last person who should say that, but sometimes you just gotta chill out and take a break from it. But yeah, thank you for all the questions. And of course, thank you for listening and watching everything. I would not be here without you guys. So whether or not you're a casual listener or a fan, or maybe you just found me on YouTube, leave a comment, let me know what you guys want to see. And I hope this helps someone. Peace.